Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 68 of the WatchRolling podcast. The WatchRolling podcast is a veteran-owned podcast that focuses on horology from a veteran's point of view, as well as shares valuable veteran resources with the watch enthusiast community. My name is Jason. I'm your host. If you're new to the pod, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. The WatchRolling podcast is brought to you by the Anti-Watch Watch Club. The Anti-Watch Watch Club is a 501c3 charitable organization that utilizes a drop-style culture to support all kinds of charities for first responders, LEOs, and veteran communities. You can get cool stuff like the flag behind me, King Kronos flag, or you can get Nalgene bottles, shorts, t-shirts, glow-in-the-dark challenge coins, all that awesome stuff. Be on the lookout. They're also doing cool stuff like collaborations with Notice watches, the new AWWC Notice Deep that came out. That's full DLC. Pretty sweet. Can't wait to get mine in. Just go check them out at antiwatchclub.org. They do a bunch of great stuff for people, and no one draws a salary. 100% of the proceeds go to charitable organizations. It's freaking sweet. Check them out. And the pod is also brought to you by Mushi Watch Straps. Mushi Watch Straps is a veteran-owned business. They provide fairly built and fairly priced NATO straps, canvas watch rolls, the whole nine, over at MushiWatchStraps.com. They're veteran-owned business. I personally love their gray fluted nylon straps, which I'll be able to show you on the awesome build from one of our guests from our guest that's coming on here for episode 68. And this week's guest is Joe from Say Koded on Instagram. Joe's a longtime friend of the pod. He's one of the first people that ever did a mod for me, and we've had what I call a modding relationship grow into a friendship over time. Joe lives on the other end of the pond, so I really appreciate him coming in because it's kind of late, especially with all the stuff he's got going on. But Joe has modded quite a fair number of pieces for me and for my family, and Joe does great work. He's excellent to work with, and just a humble guy and a down-to-earth guy, and I appreciate talking with him. And it's been too long since we talked on camera together. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Joe from Say Koded. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good evening. Thanks for the very kind introduction.
Oh, man, it's all true, bro. It's all true. It's so funny every time. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we've been obviously back and forth for a while with mods, and then just talking rubbish about watches and saying that we're going to do this for a while. So yeah, it's good to get on.
Oh yeah, and I just extol the virtues of Say Koded mods. I tell people all the time, like it's what it's very rare that you get what I call like a triangle of good stuff, right? So sometimes someone does really good work, but they're kind of a jerk, right? Sometimes they're really nice, but the work's not up to snuff, right? So when you meet someone who's super down to earth and listens and is willing to work with you, but is also cool and relatable, and then they also just do really freaking solid work. Like, I have to let people know about that, right? Now, the only thing would be perfect is if we didn't have the Atlantic Ocean between us, because mail kind of sucks sometimes. But it's been great, man, and I've learned a lot from you, and I appreciate the patience because I think my journey kind of has had some twists and turns as far as learning what I like and what I don't like and stuff like that.
I think the same with everyone, especially watch sizing always comes into it. I think most people seem to start big and end up towards the smaller pieces. It's not guaranteed, but I know I certainly have, mostly anyway. But yeah, I think a lot of people, they change their sizes, what they like, dial colors and things. But that's what modding's good for, is you can just tweak it to your tastes.
Yeah, that's got to be awesome, man. You just sit down, you're like, you know what, I want this, and then you can try it out for like a tenth of the price.
Knock it up.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Awesome. I wish I could, man. Like I've had hand surgery and stuff like that. So for me, even sometimes even like the screw links, it's just my right hand. I had surgery on it, and it just does not cooperate sometimes. So I just take it to my local jeweler and pay them 10. I've gone there so many times that sometimes they just do it for me, and they're like, "Don't worry about it. You come here so much." I'm like, "Thanks, guys. I appreciate it." But so Joe, we're here to discuss you as a person, you as a modder. I think it's kind of a cool topic because I don't think I've seen a whole lot of videos with someone that does modding. And I think that people sometimes talk about them and don't realize that they're probably watch enthusiasts first and modders second. You know what I mean? It's just something that comes up. So I don't know, just tell us how you got into watches and how it led to this point where you're at now.
Yeah, so it's a funny little story, really. this time 10 years ago, you'd probably find me wearing a G-Shock, which is cool. But that was my watch. I wore it day and night. I was 10 years ago, I was cooking, professionally, and that thing basically that got boiled. It took some abuse. Good old G-Shock Square. I've still got it, and I always aspired to have your typical nice watch one day. But for me, it was always a case of like, until I've got the funds to get a £3, £4, £5,000 watch, I'll stick with this. It's trusty. So that was me for a long time. And then a friend of mine, actually, Adam, we were kind of talking in the group chat one day about people who rock fake watches, and we were just saying, we don't really get the point of it. The actual replica watches, it's a divisive subject. Not really for me, but each to their own. But the point Adam made was, why would you spend, some of these fake watches are £200-300. Why would you spend £300 on a fake watch when you can get an SKX 007? And I'd never heard of that before. I'd never heard what an SKX 007 was. So I was like, okay, right, Google that, and then it's been either uphill or downhill depending on what you want to look at it ever since. So
it's all just uphill, baby.
Just from looking up that, then built my first mod for myself, showed a few friends, I want one, can you build me one? Put them on Instagram, and then it has snowballed. To be fair, I'm very grateful for all the support from people and lots and lots of customers. I've probably built and modified well over 100 watches.
Oh wow!
Now easily.
You have quite a bit on your feed. I mean, you post a lot of your regular pictures too of your own personal collection, but
I can't help buying watches as well. So there's always that, but it inspires the mods. So that's what I tell myself. So.
Oh, nice. Well, speaking of watches and that journey, in typical my fashion, I forgot to have us do a wrist check. So you, as the guest of honor, not to break the flow of conversation, but what do you have on your wrist tonight?
I'll tell you what, because you're the one that forgot, you go first, because it'll segue nicely into mine.
Yeah, here we go. I wanted to take it off my wrist so you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is this camera. I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna get a new one. I'm wearing my Koded mill sub mod. Now, this is one I had previously owned before that I had hit you up probably too late at night for your time, because that's how it rolls when you're on the East Coast, United States. I'm like, oh man, Joe's probably asleep. Anyways, he won't see this Instagram message, and I was like, hey, can we patina this thing? Can we make it look old? And you were like, yeah. And then off to the races, bro. And this thing, I'm telling you, man, I wear this thing to work. Everyone's like, ooh, what is that? And I tell them, and they're like, oh, it's awesome. But yeah, that's what I got on my wrist today.
What I liked about that was that obviously it was already built, but like you say, it was too clean. But it's using like the modern style case. So it is almost what the modern version of a mill sub would be. If they still releasing today. Brings nicely into mine. So yours was basically the prototype for the process. Yours was the first one that I aged.
Oh, really?
You're doing your watch taught me a lot about this kind of new aging process, and then this is where we've kind of ended up with now.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Obviously the classic case. The beauty of it being a mod is that you can put a bracelet on it. It's not got the fixed spring bars like the old school real mill subs. But yeah, I like it. It's a cheap watch that I can just throw on. And they're pretty good in terms of quality, but also you're not worried about it. I've just been on holiday with it, throwing it around, no problem. You're not worried about scratching it. I'm looking forward to it getting some marks and some dings.
Yeah, it's I'll tell you what, man, that it's a snazzy little piece. That's all I can say. I look at it every time, and it's funny how we talk about how our tastes change and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm graduating towards this will make Sam from Casual Watch Talk mad. I'm graduating towards no dates.
Okay.
Sam loves a date.
Right.
I'm getting to the point where I don't want a date. I want to pick it up and I want to go. And that's what of all the things on this, the bezel, the 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 knurled crown, the brushing that you did beautifully on the case, the engraving on the back, that the case back's engraved with a brushing. It's freaking sweet, right? The one thing I love the most is that there's no date. So this symmetry, this dial is like when I take pictures of it, any angle,
Yeah.
it's symmetrical. Chef's kiss.
No, I think it went down really well, and obviously, yeah, it inspired me to make some more. So that if there's proof that it was a successful build, is the fact that people saw it and people wanted similar.
Oh yeah, it's funny too. Is I noticed that there was other, obviously there's other people doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now I don't know if it's IG's algorithm, but it seemed like your build was like generating the most traffic. And I think probably not that the other ones aren't hand done, but like, and I don't like to give away people's processes because at a certain point I feel like it's intellectual property, right? Like I think because people know you and know it's going to be it's like a hand, like obviously you're not milling the clasp or
Mm-hmm.
anything, but it's a hand built, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's about as close to as like what's the term, like rustic. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a rustic build as possible. You know what I mean?
No, I try to, there's. I'm not the only one making that style of watch, but I've seen some that are really clean, which is fine if that's what people want. And I've seen some that are a little bit too forced in terms of the
Yeah.
patina, and I want to try and get it in the middle so that you can now add some. I'll give it a kind of head start, give it a bump start.
Oh
You
yeah.
can now ding it around at work, whatever you're going to do with it, and it will get some extra real world patina as well.
Yeah. I mean, I work with a couple of guys that actually carry like loops. They have loops in their desk,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll grab this thing and like look at it through the loop, and they're like, man. And like the other day, I don't know if you saw the loom shot I took of it
Yeah.
because I was like, people need to see this freaking speckling in the loom.
Mm-hmm.
They need to see it, right? Because that to me is like such an organic thing. You can't fake that. That is based off the process of what you did to the loom. So, if anyone's looking and you want this done, yours is going to have like almost a different fingerprint than mine would have. You know what I mean? And
100%. I
each one would be
can't do them the
unique.
same. I can't,
Yeah.
the last I did like 4 or 5 at a time on the last few I did. And, even the bezel insert, I was sending them to the people and saying, you can choose, in the order that they ordered them, kind of first come, first serve, you can choose which one you want. And, some of them wanted them more bleached, some of them because they all came out. Mine's, I'd say, like in the middle.
Yeah.
But yeah, some
That's
of them
good,
were
bro.
absolutely white, and everything in between.
That's good. I looked at every time you lift your wrist up, I'm like, that thing's free. Yeah, now I want a bracelet. I'm like, for wintertime, I need a bracelet for this thing. You know what I mean?
I'll sort you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So we talked about how you got into your journey of modding from
Mm-hmm.
your, and it's always those friends, right? Those friends that make the one-off SKX statement, and you're like, what the hell's an SKX, right?
Yeah,
Or your friends that are like posting pictures of Shoguns every Sunday, and then eventually you end up with a Shogun, right?
it
And
happens to the best of us.
it happens to the best of us. And so so we kind of talked about what got you into modding, but like, how long have you been doing it? And is there anything that you've learned from this modding thing that
Mhm.
surprised you?
Um, so we're pretty just over the 3-year mark um, now. So for some people would say that's not that long. Some people would say it's a lot longer than me. I'd say it's about in the middle because there's always new people coming into it. I did actually have a look before, just to give you some context. So the Seiko Mods group on Facebook is probably the biggest modding community, and it's pretty good. Quite a lot of helpful people on there.
Oh, nice.
80,000 members. So
Wow.
it's popular. It really, and they are worldwide, but yeah, it's popular, and it's kind of affiliated with DLW watches,
Okay.
which are a good store. So yeah, that they've obviously got a captive market there of 80,000 people. Something that surprised me, I suppose, compared to when I first started doing it to now, I've learned to think twice when I'm doing something. It's very easy to, these parts are delicate. It's very easy for me to, bend a hand or something like that.
Yeah.
And you just dive in and, something's been a bit stubborn, take a step back. It's taught me, a bit of patience, a bit of delicacy, because if you haven't got that and you just kind of go at it with a hammer, then it's not going to end well.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. The first time I handled like just general watch parts, even a dial, even a dial,
Yeah.
they're so delicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cool thing though is as a watch enthusiast, when you get to take one apart, is you really appreciate the. I mean, just how I don't know, man. Like it's a very engineered process, even for the simple stuff, right? Like people are getting like modding parts. Are probably thinking like, oh, those things. No, it still takes some touch and some delicacy and all that stuff to make these dials to put that applied indices on, and and not a lot of times they're using machines and they could be stamped and everything, but still, like it makes you
100%.
wonder, like some of the Creedor dials and stuff, they're hand painting. It's crazy, man.
I would love to be a fly on the wall for some of those hand painted sessions, and
Yeah,
like the person that's painted them is some a couple of those models, they've named the person.
yeah. Oh
Whether
yeah,
there's 10 or 50 watches worldwide, they were all painted by that one guy.
yeah,
I hope he got a limousine into work on
yeah,
that day, because
yeah.
it's pretty important for the process.
And then when you see like really good macro photos, they're just beautiful, beautiful
Mm-hmm.
watches, man. It's like, but so you were talking about the. So I don't have a Facebook account, and I probably never will. But
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about the Seiko mod group, 80,000 people.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, now this is me as an outsider to modding looking in. Um, Over time, I've learned that Seiko is basically like the Toyota of watch parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's there's Toyotas all around the world. They're very popular. They run forever. You can hit them
Mm-hmm.
with a freaking rocket for Pete's sakes, and they'll still drive.
Mm-hmm.
People are banging out like 500,000 miles, or I guess for you guys like 750,000 kilometers on these things.
Miles too here, don't worry.
Yeah. Do you think it's because people, once they understand like the robust quality of the parts and just how you can mix and match parts so much, they become popular because people like realize that they can get something pretty good for a pretty reasonable price?
It's the interchangeability, 100%. Obviously, the 007 is the watch that started it all, and I believe it began with, just a desire for people to have a slightly different bezel, slightly different bezel insert, and a different crystal. And obviously now you can change everything from the case to the date wheel and crown and case back. But yeah, I believe in the beginning it was mainly bezels that were changed. People like Yobo Keys and Dagaz watch. They were like I believe the kind of originals. And then obviously, yeah, now DLW, Namoki, Crystal Times came along, and yeah, the kind of newer ones which have been really helpful for me. Of Toko Lab, where we got some bits for your mod.
Oh yeah,
Watch Mods is a great site, and Mod Mode as well, who kind of Theo helped with the dial in that,
okay,
with the WatchRolling, and all these kind of companies that they are all competing with each other, but at the same time, I feel like they spur each other on,
yeah,
and one of them will innovate, and they'll be the first to bring out a certain color case or a certain shape
yeah,
case, and ultimately, I imagine some of them are sharing the same factories, but the ideas come from one of them first, and they get that product first, and then before you know it, they're all the playing field levels again. They've all got the 36mm rose gold Explorer cases listed,
yeah,
and then they go again until someone else comes, and it's building like this to the point now where the 007 is not the only platform. You can build them based on the Dress KX and the 013 and Samurai Turtle have all got their own
yeah.
bezels and crystals and things available. So it's cool. I like seeing it evolve, and it's evolved in the last 3 years, like the industry and the parts available. we'll see where it goes next. Hopefully some cool chronos.
Yeah, no, it's and that's what I picked up on when you said there's 80,000 people, then there's seems to be a lot of people that are helpful, in the
Mm-hmm.
group you said. And that's the one thing I think I picked up on early. You bring up my watch rolling mod. There it is, the Marine Master
Mm-hmm.
case, and that it's kind of hard to see because my camera sucks. But we were able to get the dial done.
Yeah.
We were able to get the case back done
Mm-hmm.
with my podcast logo, and then I have the Shogun bezel before I actually got a Shogun. And the crazy part about this dial is that it's silver, and I cannot get it to show up silver in pictures. Everyone's like, "Oh, is that a white dial?" I'm like, "No, it's freaking silver." But anyways,
Mm-hmm.
this is an international build in the truest sense. I mean, the dial came from Singapore, the case back. I think you sorted the case. Well, the case back was Spain, and then you did everything else. And then, obviously the parts come from Japan and other places. But everyone that, I know you did the majority of the correspondence, but all the correspondence I saw seemed pretty reasonable and pretty like understanding of you being the modder to say, we need this and we need that, and everyone's like, cool. And everyone pretty much delivered, right? Because I think even the font on the dial, the original one wasn't really up to what I wanted as far as font. I'm like, no, I want it to be more of a script, kind of like the automatic word. So has that been your experience, like when you do projects, or does it?
Yeah, the companies and the fellow craftsmen, not necessarily fellow modders, but we'll touch on that in a second, but fellow people like Seiko Crown who did that case back. He's an absolute engraving wizard. Probably the most well-known engraver in the modern business. He must be knocking out thousands of case backs a year for all around the world, and everyone sends their stuff to him because he's got a decent laser for a start. Those people are helpful. Most other modders that I speak to are really nice, really helpful. I think Brandon from Case and Dial. He's a great guy. And even about an hour ago, speaking to Jonah from Custom Chrono, get on with them all really well. There's been a couple where, I'm not here to name names because that's not what it's about, but there's a vibe that appears in the group sometimes. It's like kind of gatekeeping, and it's a bit of like hostility towards new people. But I think just like how it is with learner drivers on the road, people forget that everyone's a learner at some point. Everyone's a novice at some point, and I don't know. There's no point taking the kind of high road and thinking that you can just like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people just like shot down, whereas on that group especially, I always try and, it's about spreading knowledge. People help me. People like Loomshot on YouTube, who most people, he's got a massive channel, and his watches are, internationally known. I learned a lot just from watching him and learned that, you've got to be clean, you've got to be careful, and you've got to have the right tools and all these things that I probably wouldn't, would have just dived in without that kind of resource. So yeah, I think it's important to, definitely help new people coming into it. It helps everybody.
Yeah, he did a collaboration with Long Island Watch.
It was cool. That was really cool.
And I think that's a great thing you say, because what they're really doing is a person like him. He's giving out free knowledge, man. He like you said, the term gatekeeping. He's not like holding it back. Here it is. This is how you do modding right now. I'm sure he has like, a lot of us keep tips and tricks in the bag that we don't tell anyone about, right? But he's basically saying, here you go, and I think, and I don't know for a fact, but I met Mark Frankel at Wind Up last year. He seemed like a pretty down to earth guy, man. Like, he was cool. We sat at his booth for like 25, 30 minutes. And, when he found out, I was in the Navy, my buddy was in the Navy, he was talking about planes and stuff like that and everything. But, I could see a guy like Mark saying, I've been given free information for years. This guy's given free information. Let's do something together and do a collaboration. Because Mark's Watch and Learn series on his channel is almost 100 videos deep. It's like one of the resources. I just tell people, look, if you want to learn, like, I've gifted people watches, and it's like, I said, before you do anything with this, watch this first video. Like, here's the link. You watch this video, please, because I don't want you to break something cool that you got. You know what I mean, kind of thing. But Yeah, I could see how that works. And I think it's awesome that there's people out there because it's I've always felt like the only people that give people a hard time are people that can't do what the people they're giving a hard time are doing. I'm a
I think
firm
so.
believer in that.
At the end of the day, a lot of people are doing it for profit at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
that kind of shapes the way they treat other people because they're they feel threatened, and that's the kind of sad part about it, really. But it's the same with parts. It's a big thing on that group,
Yeah.
and on Instagram as well. I get messages all the time where people message you say, "Where'd you get that bezel? Where'd you get that bezel insert?" And yeah, I've got no problem sharing a link. If somebody, if somebody made a part, like if you made a part for a watch, I wouldn't expect you to share me the blueprints or
Yeah.
that's your kind of intellectual property. But if
Yeah.
it's available on the internet and you're just making somebody find it just because just to spite them, and that happens a lot. I see that a lot. Yeah, it's not what I like to do. I just like playing around with watches. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
No, I feel like you've always had a rising tide lifts all boats mentality, right? Like,
Hmm.
it because here's the thing, man, like I feel like you're like my watch barber, right? So shout out to my boy Vince, who I haven't had a haircut in like a week and a half, but Vince helps me keep my mop tamed, and Vince is a great guy, man, right? But he was my barber for a while, then he was gonna go and he went into it on his own, and then he was gonna stop because he was doing like real estate and stuff, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, damn, I think I'm gonna shave my head again because I didn't want to have to form a whole new relationship with the barber, right?
Hmm.
And I didn't want to go through that. It's like traumatic, bro. It's like traumatic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if you go to a barber, you don't like him, and then they jack your hair up? I feel that's the same relationship I have with you. You're like my watch barber, right? Like when I want something made, I'm not calling anybody else. I'm
We'll put it
calling
together.
you. And it's the reason why is because we have a relationship. And I was a customer first. I consider you a friend now who happens to be a customer, right? It's so funny that these people that do this gatekeeping think that people are going to magically just like them. That's not how it works, right? That's it. Maybe Toyota sells cars and no one knows anybody from Toyota. They don't care, right? But watch modding is not Toyota, and no one's ever going to become the Toyota of watch modding. Like even some of the companies that are watch modding companies,
Hmm.
you can tell they're not moving units like that because the stuff sells out either really quick or there's some mods that like certain companies where the mods that they make themselves sit there for like 2 years and they're not sold out, or they have the parts they just make them as they get filled, right? Kind of thing. Like
It's true, and I
it's like
think that it's good to have people who come back.
yeah,
Every day someone new will message me, but at the same time, I've done a couple of watches for you. There's plenty of people I've done 4 or 5 watches for, and everything in between. And yeah, definitely that those if people come back, and especially if they want something a little bit different, it's always exciting to try and push the boat out again and come up with a different idea than last time.
yeah. Well, it's funny that we're talking about relationships and ideas, right? Because I have here.
It's loomed up as well.
Oh yeah, I've been charging it for like last minute. Man, I really need a new camera. Sorry, camera, I love you, but we need to do something different. Um, that's the mini turtle panda build you did for my wife, right?
Hmm.
And we talk about relationships, and it's like when my wife saw the watch rolling one, and then I just talked about Joe, or the time you had me on your live stream with you and Matt and Chronomat. Um, she was like, "Oh, they sounded really nice." I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're great guys." You know what I mean? And we're just shooting stuff about watches, and but instantly she knows because she knows me, right? But I'm
Hmm.
like, no, I trust this guy to do this thing, and he'll listen to me when I say this is what my wife wants. It's not what I want; it's what she wants, And
Hmm.
you knocked it out of the park, and I know if she ever gets a wild hair and she wants another build of some kind, it's fire and forget. Or if I ever want to surprise her with something, it's fire and forget for her. You know what I mean? And I
You've
think that's
said it
important.
now.
Yeah. Oh no, bro, I'm gonna have her on one day. Her watch collection is is better than mine. I would say it's better, and I have some decent stuff. And the thoughtfulness she puts into what she wears. I mean, my wife's got a mundane world time, bro. Who
Nice.
who has that? I
They're
found
cool
it on
watches.
eBay and I bought it for her, but she loves it. And she's just got cool stuff, bro. She's got cool stuff. But anyways, yeah, I just think the relationships are important, and I think it's cool to hear that for the most part in the group. It's nice to know that most modders will help each other out. And like I said, man, like we've discussed it before. The people that run their mouths and you nailed it. They're intimidated, right? But the worst part is those people don't realize, bro, like you might need one of those people one day, and when you need them, they're not going to be there for you because you treated them like crap. And this
100%.
is
I mean, there's 80,000 people. There's always, if it's about customers or yeah, there's always somebody that's going to need a watch building, and there's not 80,000 until there's 80,000 people who are doing mods for everybody else. Then okay, maybe it will get a bit saturated. But I speak to Brandon, and he sent people my way, and I've sent people his way, and because we're he's closer to you than he is to me.
Yeah.
And it's nice because he knows that I'll look after someone in the UK and vice versa. And
Yeah.
even though we both would ship something out worldwide, there's enough to go around. There's always ideas and customers and parts to
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah, it's awesome, man, because Eric from Rico's Watches podcast, Eric,
Mm-hmm.
when I had Dan on from combatpsych.com, that was a referral from Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Eric was like, "Hey, I'm super backed up. There's a guy, he has really interesting stuff. I think you guys would hit it off." He put us in touch, and next thing I go on a podcast episode about a really important topic, kind of a heavy topic, but and I might have like 10% converted Dan into a watch enthusiast. He just doesn't know yet. But you know, it's those relationships and treating people well, because Eric's got a huge podcast. He's interviewed famous people from huge brands. He doesn't have to toss me a bone if he doesn't want to, but he's a good guy and he did, you know what I mean? So
That's
I think
awesome.
that's
I
important.
think that's the big thing as well, isn't it? About the watch community. It's where we're all got this crazy sickness where we just keep buying stupid things to tell the time.
Yeah.
But at least we can all share it together, and then before you know it, you're texting about not watches in the middle of the night kind of thing, and
Yeah.
thousands of miles away, and it's just how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, man. And I would say it's more of a gift and less of a sickness. We're all gifted.
Keep telling yourself.
So, doing this modding stuff, right, Joe? Doing the modding stuff. Have you had like a super big challenge or an important lesson you've learned along this journey of modding?
It's a good question. Challenge was definitely making your sub, because that there was the patina of the dial, the patina of the hands, the bleaching of the bezel, the brushing of the case. That was all. I mean, all the patina work I'd never done before,
Yeah.
because generally people have always wanted brand spanking new, shiny looking mods. Even old pieces, they've asked me to polish them up when I
Oh,
mod
wow.
them. So it's the complete opposite, really. And then the brushing I've done on bracelets, but obviously on that case I did it. On a bracelet I've got Dremel, I've got tools to do that, I've got pads.
Mhm.
On your watch I wanted to do it by hand, and I literally did it. Followed the case lines by hand. So yeah, it took a bit of practice. So that I'd say that was a fairly good challenge for me, for sure.
Nice. Yeah, bro, it's beautiful, man. It's just, it's interesting too, because I've always joked, like, with like sports and stuff like that, for example, right? Like, there's guys that are like super, guys and ladies that are super technically, you know, astute, right? They're a very technical player, right? Maybe the athleticism isn't there. And there's some people that are very athletic and maybe the technicality is not there in them.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some people where it's like nothing ever seems forced. And that's what that build feels like for me. It feels to me like I couldn't have gotten it that level of quality anywhere else. There would have been something not right, right? Like Maybe they would have machined the bezel. Maybe they would have, like not hand brushed the case or something. And there's a level of, I don't know, man. It's the difference between like making a burger at your house and then going to, I don't know what burger places you have in England, but here, like going to a burger place here, it would be good, but it's not the same as you would make at your house, or if your friend made it for you, kind of thing.
I feel that. I think, I definitely talking to people. I like to talk to people before I build the watches. It's very rare that it's a purely transactional thing. Hi, build this watch. Thanks. Even those kind of those mill subs, to get the choices from people on what they want and how far they want to take the patina, how far they want to take the the brushing and things like that. It lets me get to know them. I'm sending them photos. I'm sending them my opinion. They're asking their opinion, and even that. I mean, obviously, me and you, we've known each other a while, but even people that have been ordering watches, it's very rare that can I buy a watch? Yes, and then the watch is on the way. So I think that allows me to kind of hopefully channel what I feel they want into the watch, and especially when it's this kind of watch with patina, I try and get an idea of exactly how far they want it, and whether they want something that looks really, really old, really tropical, or lightly used and a bit crisper, and then try and put that into the watch. It's not a kind of scientific process. It's literally over there. Like literally, there's an oven over there, and some dials have been in it, and things like that. So yeah,
it's I'd love to hear the story. Like, what does your wife think? Because, and I'm only bringing this up not because your wife is in the kitchen, because it's you and her living together. When you're like, "Hey, babe, I'm gonna throw some dials in the oven." Like, at this point, is she over it, or is she like still like, "What?"
She's like, okay, it's interesting. And the funniest thing was that I needed some bleach for the bezels, and I only had like the blue stuff, like the fragrance blue stuff. So obviously I popped over to see my parents, asked my mom, you haven't got any clear bleach? She's like, what do you want clear bleach for? Have you run out for the toilets? Not exactly, no. And then she's like, she couldn't understand exactly what I was going to do with it in relation to watches. But then the next time I seen her, I showed her some photos, and she couldn't believe that that 70p bottle of bleach that she lent me became all these parts. But I think the proof's in the pudding. Same with my missus. When I showed her the dials coming out of the oven and she's seen the difference, it makes it all kind of add up.
Oh no, it's hilarious, because when I told my buddies, right? So it's interesting because most of the guys I work with are all ship guys, right? So there's different we call different people in the Navy, and we're all surface people, right? So ships on top of the water. So corrosion's a thing we fight all the time and everything. When they saw this thing, when I came in with it, they were like, "Wow," because there is a certain beauty in old things, right? There's a certain beauty in used old things. And a lot of us have, love affairs with our first ship. Like, if it was a good experience. And like, I know when my first ship was decommissioned and she went away, man, like I had a moment. Like, I went there when they towed her out. That was my home for over 4 years. And it's kind of cool to get something that is new, but made with care from someone who took their time doing it. And then when it shows up, you're like, yeah, dude, this thing's never ever going anywhere. And then when you show it to other people and you see the admiration in their eyes, and then look, it might be partially jealous too. They're like, oh man, I wish I had one inside, right? And you're like, I got it, this is mine. You know what I mean? But it's just stinking cool, man. And it's cool. The funny part is the story is, yeah. So now I can be like, yeah, Joe got some bleach from his mom.
Yeah.
And freaking made my bezels. That's freaking awesome. It's awesome.
Literally.
So when you're doing this stuff for the mods, Joe, are you like balancing multiple projects at one time?
Yeah, I mean, most of them are mine. because I just see these pieces and think, oh, that needs saving, and then it always just ends up in pieces on my workbench. But when I first started doing this, I've got office job, nothing crazy, work for an IT company, and at the end of every day, I was staying behind, kind of clearing my desk, laying out, my crystal press, my work mat, all my tools, and modern watches, and it went on like that for quite a while until I decided, like, obviously the reverse of that is every morning I had to put all the kind of tools and stuff away, and it was getting a bit laborious. So I do have a little workshop now that it's good because I can just go, sit down, build, do what I've got to do, and it makes things, even things like battery changes, it's just all there ready. I just open the door, change the battery, and go if that's all I've got on. But now I've always got a fair few projects. I think that's something I've learned over time, especially with the projects for other people, is not to take on too many at once, because it overwhelms me and it potentially disappoints somebody when it's taking a bit longer than they'd have liked. So I try and stagger it. And like, I've just been away visiting family in Europe, and it gave me a chance to take a couple of weeks off. But then I've already kind of queuing people up and saying, look, I'm not back till start of September. Let's switch this back on middle of September, and we can do something, rather than them send it me for whatever reason and not finish it before I go away because there's a delay, and then we're 6 weeks down the line. So it's just like kind of learning to stagger it benefits everybody. That's something I've got better at over time, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think a workflow process is always important, and I think it's important to listen to yourself when you have one. You have to know how you work, right? And then just like you hit the other nail on the head, is just communicate it to people, right? Like, I'm cool with almost anything anyone tells me as long as they tell me. The most annoying thing is someone not telling me anything, and it's like, well, how was I supposed to know that? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, the service as well. I think. I mean, you know what I try and do, and I made no bones about it. When we built that watch for your wife, and I can't remember if it was USPS or FedEx, but one of the couriers, obviously they had their way with it, and when it got to you, it wasn't working. It's one of those unfortunate things. Now, you're at a fork in the road there where I can say, look, it wasn't my fault. It was working. Go and sort it out, or I can fix it. And at the end of the day, it's meant that you're happy. I'm happy that you're happy. I saw a post again on the Facebook group this week, and there was a guy that had built a watch for a customer, and the customer had sent him some photos, and one of the end link pins had made loose, and he was asking, how do you get this back in? I assume he wasn't very experienced in those kind of cases, and he said that, he put, is there any way that I can make this easy so the customer can do it? And I just said to him, look, if I was in your position, I would send them a label, get it back. And he's like, well, I'm trying to avoid that. I'm like, well, all you're going to do is when the customer puts their spring bar tool through the side of the case or something like that, then that's when they're going to be even more upset than they are now. Send them a label, 15, 20 pounds, worldwide, get it back, fix it, go again. They'll be happy. You won't have a big sticky situation on your hands where you've got, a really scratched case or something like that. And then they're more likely to come back. But, you can't tell everybody how to do their thing, but hopefully he listened.
Yeah, no, it's right, man. Because sometimes it's funny that you bring that up, because I'm surprised by how many people in the watch space will flippantly deal with people's time, right? We all talk about how time's the greatest resource. How, look at your watch and realize you got to do something today because you may not have tomorrow. But then they're like, man, I'm not gonna figure it out on your own, kind of thing, or something. It's like, come on, man. Like, just, like, meet the people halfway and respect their time, because I think you get a lot further with people when you respect their time and honor it. You know what I mean?
For sure. I think that it's also important to not go straight into a situation, um, looking for an altercation. And I've seen that with companies recently, and again, not naming anyone in particular, but yeah, I've seen situations where somebody's had a gripe with a product, and the company might not agree with what's gone on, but there's two ways to go about it. You can say, look, can't see how that would have happened. I've never had this before, but let's try and work to a solution. Or you can say, well, it didn't leave the factory like that.
Yeah.
And that's not going to achieve a positive situation for anyone involved. All it's going to do is save the company the cost price of the product, really. And if that's all they're really bothered about is just saving the cost price on one product from one guy, then they're probably not the kind of company that you want to deal with, I guess, are they?
And that's ultimately how you get your 2 cents across, is you don't spend your 2 cents. Like there's people, man, there's companies I don't spend money with because I went to Wind Up and I met the people. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to buy anything from them. There's one company that my buddy was really interested in. And when he went there, they didn't have a representative from the brand there. They had someone they hired for the day. And that person couldn't answer any questions about the watches. And my buddy's like, well, I'm never buying one of those. And not in a mean way, just like, well, I'm not going to give them, if they can't be bothered to have a rep there from the company at Wind Up, you know what I mean? But I've also had other interactions. I know what you mean. So if someone was going to entertain the idea of becoming a modder, Joe, like they're sitting at home going, you know what I want to do? I want to freaking mod watches. What's one piece of advice you would give them, or one resource you would advise them to get?
Piece of advice, I would say that definitely between Loomshot and Long Island Watch and Learn, that's gonna see you through most of the basics. Second of all, take your time and just take it slow. Don't try and rush, and never ever rush building watches, because it never ends well. And just keep it clean. Keep your workspace clean. Thinking about it, I would say you don't need really fancy tools, but also don't buy the cheapest possible, because you'll just buy 2, 3, 4 iterations before. I've had like 3 crystal presses. The one I've got now, it's nothing crazy, but I think it was like £70. The first ones were like £10, then I got a £20 one, then I got a £30 one, and they just break. And then the £70 one's been going strong, so I should have just bought that in the beginning. So I'd say, if you're serious about it, get some mid-level tools, keep your place clean, and get on YouTube and start swatting up on Loomshot and Watch and Learn for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I love I've watched some Loomshot stuff, but I'm not like super interested in modding. But quality, like not only like super informative, but like quality production value, like on his stuff, like really nice. But
I think he's doing like mostly literally just production now. I don't know him personally, but follow him on Instagram, and I've seen some like cool Rolex videos and stuff like that. I think the photography and videography that he does are actually as good as the modding for sure. And that kind of, it's something I was going to touch on really, is that something that I didn't kind of expect when I started doing this was that photography, and you'll probably know this as well, the photography of watches is just as important as the watch that you build. And I've seen great modders with bad photos have basically no following, no interest in their custom. And I've seen really bad mods that are essentially just a sticker put onto the dial, which is not something I get involved with, but with amazing photos. And because the photos are amazing, they're attracting I guess it's on the explore page and things like that, and they're getting pushed to people's feeds. So I already had camera equipment before I started modding, luckily. But I've really had to kind of get clued up on taking photos of watches, because it was always photos of cars and landscapes and things like that before.
You're a really good photographer, bro. Like your stuff, you see a lot of detail. So it's and it's pretty good. I really dig it. Now I know what you mean about the photography stuff, because like it's weird, man. Like I get way more views on the reels views.
Algorithm.
That's because of music, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you've noticed, I started doing like when I do my sleep reel, I'll do a picture for you purist, right?
Yeah.
That's literally for Justin. I've never said it. I think I might have mentioned it to him, but I think we were going back and forth one day about something. He said, "Yeah, I'm kind of a purist."
His photos are cool.
Yeah, great photos. So now I always post pictures, and it says "pictures for you purist." And I'm breaking news here. I don't think I ever told Justin to his face. He's going to be a guest pretty soon, but I do that for you, Justin. Pictures for you purist for you because I get more actual likes on average, I think, on my pictures than I do on my reels. And so I've kind of balanced it out, like where I do, every once in a while I'll get a wild hair at my butt where I want to like do a Friday night loom battle reel. But I do the sleep reels now, and then I take pictures and I upload them, and then wrist shots, because wrist shots, I think, are like the wrist shots are like the fastball, man. Like people just want to see a wrist shot picture.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Oh, that's awesome though. Yeah. So photography and all that stuff. Let's see. So here's an interesting question I asked, and sometimes it pertains to people and sometimes it doesn't. But do you have a mentor in the modding space? If you do, shout them out. And then what have you learned from them?
I haven't had a specific mentor within modding, but I would say it kind of touches what we've just been talking about, is that he's a good friend of mine now as well, Dell from Winding Dial.
Okay.
He sells watches and he's pretty good at it as well. But what he's really good at, exceptional at, to be honest, is watch photography. And he literally could take photos for any of the big brands, given the opportunity. He's that good, but he'll critique me, and he knows that that's what I want. So he'll I've sent him many photos, and he said, try this next time, try that, get this, reflector board, and try these settings on a camera, because he's been training for photography more than he's been selling, longer than he's been selling watches, put it that way. So yeah, even though it's not modding specifically, he's definitely brought my photography up and taught me how to use Lightroom, which I use for everything now, and it's Lightroom is amazing. So yeah, shout out to Dell.
Oh, shout out Dale. Yeah, it's man, it's been a juggling act for me with that too, but that's a whole nother topic for another day, because I want to write, which I've been told I'm halfway decent at. I love taking pictures, but people tell me I'm halfway decent at. The video editing thing seems really fun. People tell me I'm halfway decent at that.
Your reels are awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Really,
but I always think of the TV show Parks and Recs, where Ron Swanson says, "Don't half-ass anything. Two things, whole ass one thing." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like I need to sit down one day and figure out what I'm gonna whole ass, because I'm half button a lot of stuff, and I need to figure it out.
As long as you don't go full Entertainment 720, then you're okay.
No, I'm good. Entertainment 720. That's pretty awesome. So my favorite question to ask anyone on here, and I always have to figure out how to like kind of tweak it to the guest. But when it comes to your modding customers, what's your biggest pet peeve?
That was probably one of the easiest questions to think about, really, to be fair. It's not that I need to phrase this carefully, because I want it to be quite specific. I offer mods and modding services at various price points.
Yes.
And that's fine. Everyone's at a different level. If you've got a Seiko Samurai, that's going to cost you, even used, are going to cost you £200-300 plus the parts. Then if you've got one of those, I haven't got them on hand, but the SNK field watches, they're cheap. Yeah, we can do everything in between. People limit themselves, that they want something that they've seen, but they don't want to pay that budget, and then they're limiting they're limiting the output. And for me, it's not about always spending the most money. It's about just being realistic. And I've had plenty of people send me a photo of something they've seen online, or send me an idea and say, this is what I want to spend. And I've said, look, it's not achievable. Well, that's what I want to spend. And they'll possibly go elsewhere. And
Yeah.
You know, use inferior parts and things like that, which I won't do. And then they're going to get an inferior product. So we're not talking, you know, multi-thousand-pound watches here.
No.
If you're going to, my advice would always be, if you're going to spend £300 on a watch, and I'm telling you, if you bumped it up by £100, you're going to improve the quality tenfold.
Yeah.
It's worth the extra couple of weeks, as hard as it is to wait, to save that little bit extra money. You know, it's not, you know, everybody's just swimming in cash. I know I'm not. You know, you save for these things. They're not number one priority normally. It's worth saving the bit of extra time, putting a little bit more money towards something, getting a nicer crystal, getting a nice bezel. You know, that one that we did for you, the WatchRolling one. You know, the bezel on that watch, off the top of my head, I think was probably £50 alone without a bezel insert. But when you look at it under a loop, the cuts in the side of that bezel are amazing. The way it turns is amazing.
This thing is it's the biggest light player.
Yeah.
And I have some light players. This thing, matter of fact, I might just do my sleep reel will be this tomorrow, so everyone can see, because the crystal, the bezel, the dial, the chapter ring, all that stuff I purposely chose because I thought this stuff's going to reflect light. It's going to reflect lume. It's going to give me distortion. And you pulled it off masterfully. But you told me, I remember you telling me, like, hey, this bezel inserts, like, I'm like, that's cool, bro. Like, okay. You know, because it's what I wanted.
You could have got a £20 bezel for it, and yeah, it would have been half the price for the bezel, but you wouldn't have achieved the same result. So for the sake of, you know, the extra £100 to make that a bit more of a premium build, I think it was well worth it in the end. And I guess it is hard to convey that when the ideas are just in an Instagram inbox, but it's hard for me to say, you know, just trust me. People who don't necessarily know me, when I say, you know, they'll send me a part on AliExpress, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of good parts on AliExpress. I've bought plenty on there, but you've got to know your stores, you've got to know which parts, you've got to know compatibility, and they'll send me something and say, well, here's a whole case, crystal, bezel insert, bracelet set for £25. Why can't we use this?
Yeah. No, I think it's just like a restaurant, bro. I don't think people stop and think about that either, right? Like, you have a funnel, right? So you go to a restaurant and you love the food, right? Oh, man, the food's great. But you don't see like the fish person, the beef person, the vegetable person, the, you know, the rice, whoever. They all come to this choke point, which is the chef. And then the chef makes this meal, and then you're like, well, why is it $50? Well, it's like, bro, I'm getting like fresh fish here every day, right? And it's not, I could go a cheaper route. You're going to get an inferior product. It doesn't mean it's not a good product. It's just not, maybe the case tensile strength isn't enough. Maybe the, you know, the bezel doesn't have like as much, you know, it's not as, it doesn't have that crisp, like it doesn't have, you know, anyways, I don't know if you can even hear that, but it doesn't have that crispiness to it, or, you know, like the structure like this one has. And it's like, I'm gonna tell you what, man, like the proof's in the pudding. I show people my WatchRolling one, I show people this one, and then I show them stuff like my Grand Seiko, or I show them my Zodiac. And the one thing people tell me all the time that aren't watch enthusiasts, they do not understand how these aren't made in factory. And that's the best compliment you can get.
That's the best kind of mod.
Yeah. Where can I get one of those? I'm like, well, you got to contact Joe, because Joe makes them by hand. Seiko doesn't sell them.
The best kind of mod is one that uses, you know, I like to use the take a watch and mod it, or use as many factory parts as we can to bring something that, you know, they weren't making this in black. I think they do now. But, you know, this is, I think it's an SPB 185 and a 187 and a 207 all combined into one, and they weren't making that. But, you know, I managed to find the parts and go for it, and it's a cool build, and it's using all OEM bits, and it looks like it came out the factory like that. And I think that's what's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, it's funny, we were talking about it the other day at work. One of the gentlemen I work with, he got in, he's not a watch enthusiast. Well, he kind of is now, because it's my fault, but he's an older gentleman, and he got into like fashion and gentleman named John, and like just business casual, like dressing smart and sharp for work, and watches were part of that. And he was reading a lot of like not so much Gear Patrol, but a lot of like the fashion blogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
He got in on Christopher Ward early. He has like
Okay.
2 Gen 1 Christopher Wards, and they're awesome, right? And he bought his wife bought him a Zodiac with the ceramic
Nice.
bezel
Mm-hmm.
insert one with the dark bluish black dial, all
Mm-hmm.
because I showed it to him when I came back from wind up. He showed it to his wife and she bought it for him for Christmas, right? But
Nice.
my point is, I actually don't even know what the hell my point is. I just forgot because I was running my mouth too much. But it's what was I going to say? Well, anyways, it's been a long day. For those of you that are watching and listening, it is 7 p.m. for me and it's midnight for Joe over there. So the point I was going to get to is watches are awesome.
It's true.
You can get. Oh, here's the point. They just released that Marine Master case GMT. Seiko
Yes.
did,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not cheap, right?
Mm-hmm.
I looked him dead in the eyes. I said, within a year, my buddy's going to be able to make a mod for me just like that. Within a year, and I
Starts
will
right
not
now.
pay. Yeah, and I will not pay anywhere near that amount of money. And I'm like, it's a true fact, right? Like it's just it is what it is. Like,
but then the other thing to bear in mind is that a lot of these watches they come out, Shogun included. I love Shoguns, and I am like the church of Shogun on Instagram.
yeah,
the RRP on them is I think £1,200 pounds, but by the time I've seen them on discount brand new for 800 for a start. By the time they hit the used market, you're talking 400 or 500. So that's the way I like to do watch collecting as well. As well as modding. I've got a lot of watches, and I try and get them all at a good price because to me it's like guilt-free collecting. And maybe the people who are selling them don't enjoy the way I like to buy them because they get my lowball offers on eBay in the middle of the night. But when I win them for bargain prices, then they go in my watch box, and I'm happy that I look at it. I know that I didn't pay MSRP for that.
That's the way to go, bro. Like I got my wife's Mondaine I was telling you about. I submitted an offer like at 11:30. I woke up in the morning. The gentleman had accepted the offer. I was like, "Hey," and I'm like by myself in bed, like no one's up. I'm like, "Oh man, I really wish I could tell someone about this, but I can't." All right, Joe. So, what's your Grail piece?
It has changed over the years, but I think, and it's still not in the short term really, but maybe before I'm 50, let's say, I would love a Lake Suwa, the Grand Seiko limited edition. The dials, the blue dial that looks like the lake. It's absolutely incredible spring drive movement. It's pretty end game for me. The only other one that did come to mind, but I mean, it will probably stay over our beach. But I like to be what's the word? Optimistic. Is a Roman Gauthier Logical One. The first time I ever saw that watch, it's literally an absolutely outrageous piece. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's got like a fusee and chain movement. So for want of a better word, it's kind of driven by what looks like a bike chain inside.
Oh wow!
But it's all obviously handmade, and on each link of the bike chain is like a ruby. The detail on it is incredible, but it's also about half of my house. So we'll see. Maybe I can sell half the house, and then I'll just sit in the empty half with the watch on, and then that'll be fine.
Yeah, it's an investment. It's an investment in yourself and your future. No, that's awesome. Yeah, man. I got a Grand Seiko book back here, and I'm trying to learn about them because it's just my SBGX 335, man, like changed my opinion about a lot of stuff. It's I don't know, man. I love that thing. I have to make myself wear other stuff. I have to make but I think over time a lot of stuff's going to fall to the wayside, and that's just going to be because people are like, oh, aren't you worried about this rot? I don't care. I want to wear it. If I get a scratch on it, it's mine. It's my scratch.
I think that the GS are moving away from being underrated and into being rated by people who know. And that kind of watch is, on the face of it, it looks like just a big kind of a beastly diver watch. But then they've also finished it just like they would one of their dress watches or something like that. So you've got, the best of both worlds, really. You could take it anywhere, I imagine. It's a 9F movement in that one.
Yeah. Yep.
So, it's as accurate as anything as well. But it's also got that polishing and finishing that you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah. Not dual that pulse motor, anti-backlash gear. Mm-hmm. It's just, bro. And it's the K shape is very, samurai shogun-y. Mm-hmm. It's got all that stuff that I enjoy in a timepiece. It's just man, no date, quartz. I don't got to do anything. I just put this thing on and wear it, and it's beautiful. But
they have a good battery life as well, I believe.
Yeah, they told me. I mean, yeah, and then so that's what I've been looking up. Like, I have a local jeweler, and I have one that actually sells Grand Seiko.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with the new release that came out today,
I thought we were going to touch on that possibly. I mean,
I'm on the list, bro. That's all I gotta say.
You on the design team as well, or?
I don't know if
it's pretty tailored to you.
I don't think so. I read the Watches of Espionage article, and I read it, and so I guess these things have been around for over a year and some change,
mm-hmm.
and they were being issued to SEAL team members that do specific units, and those ones have a specialized case back with the unit logo, and then they're serialized, and then
mm-hmm.
I guess that you can have a conventional or a destro option if you're actually getting them
mm-hmm.
if they're actually being provided to you for service, right? They're being issued. And then the civilian one just has the conventional crown. But when I saw that thing, I was like, what the bleep? And then I saw it and I was like, is this a joke? Cause for a second it was like on my news feed for a second. I was just checking my phone at like a I don't smoke. People smoke. I'll go check my phone on my smoke break. And because I don't smoke. That's my phone break. But anyways,
mm-hmm.
I thought it was a joke. And then I saw Simon from Escapement 24's post, and I was like, what the hell? And then I started looking, I'm like, oh my God, bro. Because to me, like, it's going to sound funny, but like, I've always wanted a Pelagos because I feel like I'm burying the lead because I'm going to do a video. But what I'll tell you is this. The FX, the Marine Nationale and the Red Bull are an appetizer and an energy drink. They did not have an entree for the FXD, and Tudor now has an entree for the FXD. You can eat that all day.
I think I mean, once again, as they always did, but the same with the blue one. I've already seen the split opinions, but all the people that seem to be upset about it were hoping that it was going to be a new Tudor sub.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is any benefit for the company anyway, for them releasing a cheap sub when there's plenty of people who are after an expensive sub, the wait list to, as long as you're on. So I think the only people who wanted it were people who maybe can't get on the wait list or can't afford a sub. And to me, that's it's almost like they kind of validating that if they got a Tudor sub, it's okay. Whereas if they got a Steinhardt or something like that, then it's not acceptable. But if Tudor make a sub, then it's fine. Whereas I think I quite like that Tudor's going in their own direction. And they have been for a little while now. Okay, the Black Bay is a bit of a throwback, but again, look how popular it is. You can't buy a watch from Rolex anymore that looks anything like that. So I think it's pretty cool.
I think the people that were hoping for a mill sub, right?
Mm-hmm.
Traditional mill sub. I get being bummed out. Yeah, I get people being bummed out about it not being that. I get those people being bummed out. I don't get being angry, but I get being bummed out. I've seen some people say that this is boring. And to those people, I say, you have no idea what you're talking about. It's supposed to be boring. This is a watch worn by people going to do very dangerous things. And the last thing you need is a shiny, bright, colorful, look at me watch. This thing is the steak on the plate that is Tudor's meal. That is the FXD. Right now, I wouldn't pair a Red Bull with steak. I'm pretty sure that's bad for your heart. And maybe the Marine Nationale are like, French cut string beans or something. I don't know. But it's like, you've heard me forever say I'm not going to jock the French Navy. Well, guess what? I get to jock my Navy now. Mine. You know what I mean? And it's just freaking sweet, bro. I can't tell you, like, when I stopped, because I ran into, I got to meet Eric from Rico's Watches podcast when they did the Heroes of the Deep charity dive. I came down to talk to the guys, and Brock, Deep Sea EDC, and Eric had his Pelagos. He had it. And I told him, I said, man, if they made this in an FXD, I'd be all over it like a hobo on a ham sandwich. And he laughed at me, and in a very funny way, by the way. He laughed at me in a very funny way. And then sure enough, it's there. And it will go down in history, mark my words, as a quintessential tool watch from this time period. There is no better. I mean, some people would argue like the G-Shock, and I get it. Like, digital, you can do a million things. Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. The Elliott Brown. It's awesome. It's awesome.
I'd like to throw that into the ring.
Oh yeah.
But quintessential tool watch, but they're not as well known. But
they're great stuff.
They're legit. People doing some very secretive operations with an Elliott Brown on their wrist around the world. So
exactly.
Shout out to those guys. They're really good company as well.
Oh yeah, and Justin talks about him, and and I know it, dude. We're all like low-level drug dealers, bro. Like, Justin got you hooked on something, you got me hooked on a Shogun. It's the most gifted relationships that we're ever gonna have, and it's not a sickness. It's really not. We're all just helping each other out. Yeah. It's a gift, and we're all sharing our gifts with everybody else. But no, it's exciting times, man. That Tudor.
I like
it. Anyways, so Joe, I don't want to keep you too long. I know it's late there. Where can our listeners and viewers find you online? Do you have any special projects or anything you want to plug?
Nothing crazy at the moment. I'm still working on some, patina subs and things like that. So if anyone has any cool ideas, we can do something. Obviously, you can always find me at Say Koded, SEIKODED, on Instagram. Same, my website points to there at the moment, saykoded.com. Even if you just want to talk watches, then let's just be sick together.
Yes. I can vouch for Joe. He's always down to talk watches.
Always.
I am too, except for when I'm working, but yeah. Even than I tend to work at. Well, Joe, I want to thank you for coming on, man. And, and for posterity's sake, I want to thank you for being one of the good dudes in the space, man. And I appreciate it. And it's just been a blessing, man, to make buddies essentially, in a lot of cool places, because, where I live isn't cool. But just thanks for everything. And I look forward to our next build, because it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And but I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me, mate. It's been good. We said we're going to do it for a while, and finally did. And look forward to the next one.
Oh yeah, the next one's going to be a watch talk, where we just are filthy animals the whole entire time. So you know what I mean? Just progressing the sickness as we go. But
100%.
Thanks again, and to everyone, have a good evening. And remember, at WatchRolling.com, you make the watch. The watch doesn't make you.